Have you ever noticed that people around you, whether friends or family, disappear faster than the last slice of pizza at a party? Don't worry, it doesn't necessarily mean you're toxic, at least not intentionally, but there are hidden reasons that might be pushing people away from you. In this special video, you will discover the 12 most common reasons why people distance themselves from you. The best part? You'll learn how to transform these behaviors to strengthen your relationships. Stick around until the end because I'll reveal the most surprising and commonly ignored reason that can change everything. Before we start, if you find value in these videos, please subscribe and click the notification bell to stay updated. Let's go with the first reason. Have you ever met someone who seems to have an invisible microphone stuck to their mouth? That person who turns every conversation into an endless monologue about themselves. Well, my friends, get ready to discover why this me syndrome might be pushing people away from their lives without them even realizing it. Picture this. You're at a party, enjoying the music and the company, when suddenly Mr. Main Character appears. Before you can even say hello, he's already telling you about his incredible job promotion, his new sports car, and his vacation in the Maldives. Meanwhile, all you can do is nod and smile, desperately searching for an excuse to escape. But wait, there's more. This behavior isn't just annoying, it actually has a scientific name: egocentrism. Psychologist Jean Piaget, famous for his theories on cognitive development, described egocentrism as the inability to see things from any perspective other than one's own. And while this is normal in young children, some adults seem to have gotten stuck in this phase. So, why do some people fall into this verbal trap? According to Dr. Ramani Durvasula, a clinical psychologist and expert in narcissism, this can be a sign of deep insecurity. Paradoxically, she explains, people who constantly talk about themselves are often seeking validation and approval from others. It's as if they're saying, "Look at me, I'm interesting, I'm valuable." But here's the ironic twist. The more they talk about themselves, the less interesting they become to others. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. A study conducted by Harvard University found that talking about oneself activates the same pleasure centers in the brain as eating chocolate or receiving money. Wow. It turns out that being the center of attention is literally addictive. However, this addiction comes at a high cost. Philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Every man I meet is my superior in some way. In that way, I learn from him." But if you're always talking, when do you listen and learn? You'd be surprised at what can happen when you start listening more and talking less. Not only will you become more interesting, but you'll also discover a world of fascinating perspectives that you've been missing out on. As humorist Will Rogers said, "I never lost a friend by listening too much." So next time you find yourself in a conversation, try this little experiment. Count to 10 before talking about yourself again. You might be surprised to find out how much you can learn from the world around you. And who knows, you might even discover that you're far more interesting when you're not trying so hard to be. Number 2, the emotional roller coaster. Have you ever felt like your emotions are a crazy DJ at the party of your life? One moment you're dancing to the beat of happiness, and the next, bam, you plummet straight onto the dance floor of drama. Welcome to the emotional roller coaster. The second reason people might be distancing themselves from you faster than a cat from a bubble bath. But don't worry, you're not alone on this turbulent ride. Even Aristotle himself, over 2,000 years ago, spoke about the importance of emotional balance. In his Nicomachean Ethics, the Greek philosopher proposed the doctrine of the golden mean, suggesting that virtue lies in the balance between extremes. If Aristotle were your co-pilot on this emotional roller coaster, he'd probably say, "Hey, my friend, how about we slow down a bit and find some middle ground?" Now, this doesn't mean you should become an emotionless robot. In fact, psychologist Lisa Feldman Barrett, in her book How Emotions Are Made, reminds us that emotions are a fundamental part of the human experience. The problem arises when our emotions become an uncontrollable hurricane, sweeping away everyone in its path. Think of your friends as amateur meteorologists. They're constantly trying to predict your emotional weather. If one day you're all smiles and the next you're throwing lightning bolts and firestorms, it's understandable that they might want to take shelter far away from your personal storm. Psychologist Paul Ekman, famous for his work on recognizing emotions, suggests that we have 6 basic emotions: joy, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, and disgust. Imagine these emotions as the colors of a rainbow. A rainbow is beautiful because all the colors are in harmony, but if your emotional rainbow changes colors every 5 seconds, it's more likely to cause dizziness than admiration. Now, have you ever wondered why some people seem to handle their emotions with the grace of a ballet dancer, while others, us, are more like an elephant in a china shop? Well, neuroscience has something to say about that. Neuroscientist Richard Davidson has dedicated much of his career to studying the brain and emotions. His research suggests that mindfulness and meditation can help us regulate our emotions more effectively. It's like training your brain to be a better emotional DJ, smoothly transitioning between different moods instead of making abrupt shifts that leave everyone with a headache. But all is not lost if you feel like your emotional roller coaster is out of control. Psychologist Daniel Goleman, known for popularizing the concept of emotional intelligence, reminds us that these skills can be learned and improved over time. It's like learning to ride a bike. At first you might fall a lot, but with practice and perseverance, you'll soon be pulling off emotional acrobatics worthy of a circus. Okay, maybe not that extreme, but you get the idea. Number 3, the lost art of keeping promises. Have you ever wondered why your friends seem to vanish whenever you need help? You might be making one of the most common mistakes in social relationships, making promises you don't keep. Imagine Carlos, the world champion of I'll do it tomorrow. Carlos is that friend who always has the best intentions but never follows through. I'll help you move, he says enthusiastically, but when the day comes, his phone is mysteriously off. Of course, I'll come to your party, he promises, but he ends up being just another empty seat. Carlos can't understand why, little by little, his friends stop inviting him to events or asking him for favors. He wonders, why doesn't anyone trust my word? The answer, dear Carlos, is simple but powerful. Reliability is the currency of human relationships. Every broken promise is like a small hole in the friendship boat. At first, you hardly notice it, but over time, the boat sinks beyond repair. A fascinating study from the University of Oxford revealed that keeping promises increases trust by an astonishing 50%. Can you imagine? It's as if every fulfilled promise were a brick in the construction of a fortress of trust. But here's the plot twist. Sometimes, the best thing to do is keep your mouth shut. Remember when you told everyone you were going to start going to the gym, or that you were going to learn a new language? It turns out that announcing our plans to the world can actually backfire. A friend of mine and I always say, if you say you're going to do something, you probably won't do it. And it's not just a clever phrase, there's science behind it. Psychological studies suggest that when we share our goals, our brain experiences a false sense of accomplishment, which reduces our motivation to actually follow through. Now, failing to keep your promises doesn't just affect others, it's also a form of self-disrespect. Every time you let yourself down, you erode your own confidence. It's like having a mini version of yourself in your head thinking, there he goes again, promising things he won't keep. And trust me, that mini you can be pretty harsh. But all is not lost. The concept of personal integrity is like the glue that holds our reputation together. Imagine that your word is a kind of superpower. Every time you keep a promise, that power grows stronger. People start to think, if Carlos says it, it's going to happen. Wouldn't it be great to have that kind of reputation? So, how can we be more consistent between what we say and what we do? Here are some strategies. The under-promise, over-deliver rule. Promise less than you think you can accomplish. That way, when you exceed expectations, you'll be the unexpected hero. The power of no. Sometimes saying no is more valuable than giving an insincere yes. Your time and energy are limited resources. Learn to manage them wisely. The if and then technique. Instead of making vague promises, be specific. If I finish my work on time, then I'll go to your party. This helps you be more realistic and increases your chances of following through. Number 4, the inability to let go. Sometimes relationships don't deteriorate because of what's happening in the present, but because of what we refuse to let go of from the past. The inability to move on is like carrying a backpack full of stones. Even if you don't see them, every bad memory, every unforgiven mistake, every moment you keep dragging along is an invisible weight that holds you back. Whether you realize it or not, that weight affects your relationships, making them heavier than they should be. Learning to let go doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from what you can't change to make space for something new, something you can influence. Sometimes, when we cling to someone or something, we are actually closing the door to new opportunities, new people, new moments. Think about love. Have you ever been so caught up in wondering why someone left that you became trapped in their departure? But here's the truth. They left because their path no longer aligned with yours. And this is key. When someone walks away from your life, it's because another destiny, another purpose is calling them. Just as you have your own goals and dreams, they have theirs. Let's put it into a simple metaphor. Life is like a train. There are stations, and at each one, people get on and off. Some will ride with you for a while, accompanying you from one station to another, but eventually they'll step off because their destination lies elsewhere. Not everyone is meant to stay until the end of the journey, and that's okay. Each person has their own path, and that doesn't make their presence in your life any less valuable. Accepting this and letting go with gratitude and kindness is the key. Don't hold on to those who leave, because the space they leave behind is what allows new, better things to arrive. Believe me, I speak from experience. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is not hold on with anger, resentment, or bitterness. Speak your truth, express what you feel, be grateful for what you shared, and genuinely wish them well. Don't hold grudges. Never let someone go with anger, because in the end, you're the one who will carry that weight. Life is short, my friend, and every step you take should be in peace, so that the new things coming your way arrive with strength and without baggage, because at the end of the day, we all have just one life, and the best thing we can do is live it with an open heart, ready for whatever comes next. Before we move on to the fifth reason, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel with the bell on so you don't miss future videos. And if you love this kind of content as much as I do, comment "I love wisdom." Let's keep learning and improving our lives together. Number 5. The relentless judge syndrome. Have you ever caught yourself judging someone so harshly that you could practically freeze hell with your stare? This peculiar habit of constantly criticizing others is like having a superpower that, instead of attracting people, repels them. Like a magnet flipped the wrong way. Quite the talent for making friends, huh? Excessive criticism is more common than you think, and its effects on relationships are as destructive as an elephant rampaging through a china shop. Imagine for a moment that you're a detective, but instead of solving crimes, your job is to find flaws in everything and everyone. Sounds exhausting, right? Well, that's exactly how the people around you feel when they're constantly subjected to your relentless scrutiny. It's as if you're carrying around a giant magnifying glass, using it to inspect every little imperfection in others. Now, not all judgment is bad. The difference between constructive and destructive criticism is as vast as the gap between a gentle pat on the back and a punch to the gut. Constructive criticism is like a good coach. It encourages you to improve. Destructive criticism, on the other hand, is like that friend who reminds you of your biggest failures right before an important date. But why do we become relentless judges in the first place? Well, often it's a defense mechanism. Criticizing others makes us feel superior, as if we have all the answers. It's a way of projecting our own insecurities onto other people. As the psychologist Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Deep, isn't it? You might be shocked to learn that, according to a study by the University of California, excessive criticism can reduce a person's self-esteem by 40%. That's almost half. Imagine that every negative comment is like a tiny hammer chipping away at someone's confidence, and let's be honest, nobody wants to be the wrecking ball of someone else's self-esteem. But there's good news. There are techniques to provide feedback in a positive and empathetic way. It's like learning to cook. At first, you might burn everything, but with practice, you'll create delicious meals that people actually enjoy. One great approach is the sandwich method, wrapping the critique between two positive comments. It's like giving someone medicine with a little sugar. Another technique, practicing empathy. Before judging, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Do they fit? Are they comfortable? Too tight? This perspective can help you be more understanding and less critical. As the philosopher Pythagoras once said, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. At the end of the day, acceptance and support are far more effective than relentless criticism. Think of relationships like plants. When nurtured with care and attention, they flourish. But if overwatered with negativity, they wither away. So the next time you feel the urge to judge, take a deep breath and ask yourself, will this actually help, or am I just unloading my own frustrations? Number 6, the trap of constant comparison. If you thought judging others was an extreme sport, wait until you meet its close cousin, compulsive comparison. Ever wondered why your friends seem to have movie-like lives, while you feel like an unnoticed extra in the background? This mental trap is more common than cat memes on the internet and can be as addictive as scrolling through Instagram at 2 a.m. Take Sophia, for example, a brilliant woman who can't help but feel like a potato with eyes whenever she sees her friends achieving success. The result? Her friends start avoiding talking about their wins around her as if they were kryptonite. Sound familiar? You're not alone. In fact, a study from the University of Pennsylvania found that social comparison can reduce our overall life satisfaction by up to 35%. It's like every comparison is a tiny thief, silently stealing pieces of our happiness. But wait, there's more. Psychologist Leon Festinger, the father of social comparison theory, explains that this habit is as natural as breathing. The issue arises when we shift from inspirational comparison to destructive comparison. It's the difference between saying, if she did it, I can too, versus she succeeded, so I must be a total failure. Now, have you heard of healthy envy versus toxic envy? The first motivates you to improve. The second buries you in self-pity deeper than the Mariana Trench. As the philosopher Seneca once said, we are miserable because we compare our fate with those who have more. And wow, was old Seneca right. But don't worry, friends. Just as we learned not to touch a hot stove, we can train our brains to avoid toxic comparisons. How? Here are some techniques more effective than a New Year's diet. Cultivate gratitude. Every time you feel envy creeping in, write down 3 things you're grateful for. It's like an antidote to the poison of comparison. Practice self-acceptance. Remember, you're unique, like a viral meme, but in human form. Focus on your own growth. As Carol Dweck, a Stanford psychologist, suggests, adopt a growth mindset. Your only real competitor is you. Use comparison as inspiration. If you're going to compare, do it in a way that motivates you rather than drags you down. Detox from social media. Keep in mind that Instagram is just a highlight reel of people's lives, not their actual day-to-day reality. At the end of the day, the key is understanding that everyone has their own path. As the poet Antonio Machado wisely said, "Traveler, there is no path, the path is made by walking." Number 7, the forgotten art of apologizing. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where admitting a mistake felt harder than climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops? Welcome to the fascinating world of I never make mistakes, where pride is stiffer than a cactus in the desert. But don't worry, you're not alone on this emotional roller coaster. Imagine for a moment that you're Cristiano Ronaldo, and someone asks you to publicly admit that Messi is better. Feel that knot in your stomach? That feeling is precisely what many experience when faced with the possibility of acknowledging an error. It's as if our ego were a balloon about to burst at the slightest prick of humility. Now, we all know someone who seems to have a PhD in never being wrong. These are the people who could be on fire and still insist that everything is under control. The problem? If you're like this, your relationships are doomed to end in conflicts more tangled than your earphones in your pocket. But why is it so hard to admit our mistakes? According to psychologist Robert Leahy, author of The Worry Cure, it's because we associate mistakes with a threat to our self-esteem Our brain tells us, if I mess up, I'm a complete failure. Spoiler alert, you're not. The good news is that humility and the ability to admit mistakes are skills we can develop, like going to the gym, but for your ego. And the benefits are amazing. A study from Ohio University found that a sincere apology can restore trust by an impressive 70%. Can you imagine? It's practically relationship magic. On the other hand, excessive pride is like a virus for your relationships. It slowly corrodes the bonds that connect you to others until one day you find yourself alone, surrounded only by your impeccable record of being right. As the philosopher Epictetus wisely said, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. So how can we develop this superpower called humility? Here are some techniques that are more effective than trying to bend a spoon with your mind. 1. Practice the mistake of the day. Each night acknowledge one mistake you made. It's like a journal, but less dramatic and more useful. 2. Play the what if game. Before defending your position to the death, ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? This simple mental exercise helps flex your perspective. 3. Use the apology sandwich. When saying sorry, start by acknowledging your mistake, then explain why it happened, and finish with a commitment to improve. It's like an emotional Big Mac. 4. Cultivate self-reflection. Take a few minutes a day to think about your actions. It's like meditation, but without the awkward sitting on the floor. Remember, vulnerability and authenticity are like super glue for your relationships. As researcher and author Brené Brown says, vulnerability is not about winning or losing. It's about having the courage to show up and be seen without any guarantee of the outcome. Number 8. The lack of curiosity. Think about the last time someone listened to you with genuine interest. How did you feel? Valued, important, maybe even fascinating. That's the magic of real curiosity. A social superpower that few master, but everyone can develop. The legendary Dale Carnegie, in his book How to Win Friends and Influence People, emphasized this nearly a century ago, and it remains pure gold today. It's like the manual we never knew we needed for navigating human relationships. And he wasn't the only one who understood this. The philosopher Epictetus put it perfectly. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, being a good listener is like finding water in the desert. But let's be clear, it's not about faking interest. Fake curiosity is like cheap perfume. You can smell it from miles away. We're talking about real curiosity, seeing every person as a fascinating book waiting to be read. As Carl Rogers, the father of person-centered therapy, said, when someone truly listens to you without judging or trying to shape you, it feels wonderful. It's an emotional gift that few offer. So how can you master this art? Simple. Ask open-ended questions. Instead of, do you like your job? Try, what do you enjoy most about your work? This shifts small talk into meaningful conversation. A fun trick, the 3-question game. Every time you talk to someone, challenge yourself to ask at least 3 questions about what they say before talking about yourself. Think of it as being a curious detective decoding the universe, and that universe is the person in front of you. Number 9. Disrespecting boundaries. Imagine you have a neighbor who constantly walks into your house uninvited, helps himself to your fridge, and, to top it off, puts his feet on your coffee table. No matter how much you tolerate it, that kind of invasion would drive you crazy. Now think about this in relationships. When we ignore people's boundaries instead of building closeness, we push them away. Respecting boundaries isn't optional. It's the foundation of every healthy relationship. But often, without realizing it, we cross those invisible lines that make others feel comfortable. Ever insisted on talking about a topic someone clearly didn't want to discuss? Or worse, pressured someone into doing something they already said no to? If so, you've crossed a boundary. And let's be honest, nobody likes a nosy neighbor. Boundaries are like traffic signs. They exist to prevent accidents. Ignore a stop sign too many times and sooner or later you'll crash. Some people need space after a rough day, while others prefer to vent right away. The key is to observe, listen, and above all, respect. And if you're ever in doubt, Remember this golden rule: if you wouldn't like someone doing it to you, don't do it to them. Oh, and if you think respecting boundaries is boring, you're wrong. Setting and respecting boundaries doesn't just avoid problems, it builds trust and makes people want to be around you. So next time someone asks for a little space, give it to them. And please, don't be that neighbor who eats all the food in the fridge. At least leave some dessert. Number 10. Constant drama. Do you know that person who makes everything in their life seem like a scene from a soap opera? Maybe, without realizing it, sometimes that person is you. Living in a constant whirlwind of chaos and conflict can be exhausting, not only for you but also for those around you. And the worst part is that drama has an almost magical ability to multiply. You start with a small problem, and before you know it, you're caught in a storm that even Shakespeare couldn't have imagined. Constant drama can stem from various sources: an unconscious need for attention, a tendency to overreact to problems, or even that strange human habit of complicating what is simple. Whatever the cause, the result is the same. People start to distance themselves because they simply cannot handle the intensity. And here's the interesting part: many times the drama does not come from the events themselves, but from how we handle them. Did your morning coffee come out lukewarm? It's not the end of the world. Did your friend not reply to your message right away? That doesn't mean they don't care about you anymore. But if you constantly see life as a series of catastrophes, others will notice and they'll look for a way out. A useful trick to reduce drama in your life is to adopt what I call the Zen filter. Before reacting to something, ask yourself, will this matter in a year? If the answer is no, then it's probably not that important now either. Remember, people are not looking for a seat on an endless emotional roller coaster. Instead, they seek peace and support. And if you can offer that instead of chaos, you won't just avoid pushing people away, you'll draw them closer than ever. Number 11. Lack of empathy. Empathy is one of those qualities that we sometimes take for granted, but in reality, it has an enormous impact on our relationships. It's like the oil that keeps the engine of human connection running smoothly. And I'm not just talking about feeling sorry for others, but about putting yourself in their shoes, understanding their point of view, and most importantly, acting without expecting anything in return. When we talk about being empathetic, it's important to remember that it's not always about solving other people's problems, but about simply being there for them without asking for anything in return. It's like giving a friend a coffee when they're having a bad day, not because you expect them to invite you to the movies later, but simply because you want them to feel better. That kind of selfless action is often what has the greatest impact. Understanding another person's point of view is not easy. It's almost a superpower. We all have our own perspective of the world, shaped by our experiences and mental filters. But when we make the effort to understand others, we show real respect and create a deeper bond. It's like when you're in a conversation, and instead of thinking about what you're going to say next, you actually listen to what the other person is saying. This practice of listening without interrupting is key to allowing empathy to flourish. And speaking of respect, another essential aspect of empathy is avoiding unnecessary arguments. Conversations can sometimes become territorial, especially when we disagree, but it's not always necessary to win the battle. Instead of focusing on who is right, why not focus on how can I understand you better? This shift in mindset can turn a potential fight into a productive and respectful conversation. If you really want to strengthen your relationships and become a more empathetic person, I encourage you to practice this approach. It's not about becoming everyone's therapist, that would be exhausting, but about offering that dose of humanity that we all need from time to time. Empathy, in its purest form, is giving without expecting, listening without judging, and being present without needing to do anything other than simply understand. Number 12. Lack of personal hygiene. One of the most underestimated yet powerful reasons why people distance themselves from you is a lack of personal hygiene. And no, it's not just about showering every day, although yes, that definitely helps, but about taking care of your body, your health, and your appearance. It's a reflection of how much you value yourself. Your body is your temple, and you only get one, so taking care of it is essential. When you dress well, shower, take care of your face, skin, and oral hygiene, people notice. It's not just about how you look, but also about how you feel about yourself. Simply wearing clean clothes, keeping yourself well-groomed, and maintaining good physical health shows that you respect and value yourself. And that doesn't go unnoticed. People tend to treat you with more respect, and without even realizing it, they begin to perceive you differently. It's like when you see someone who is in shape, you automatically assume that person is disciplined, takes care of themselves, and has self-respect. And when someone's appearance is neglected, whether we admit it or not, we tend to judge. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying appearance is everything, of course not. But let me be honest with you, first impressions matter. While personality is crucial, your physical image is the first thing people see, and that can't be changed instantly. Have you ever noticed how people's attitudes shift when they see you well-groomed? That's the magic of personal hygiene. Let's not forget the basics. Take care of your health. Eat well, exercise, and quit smoking. No one may tell you this outright, but your body, your breath, your skin, everything speaks for you. Morning coffee can leave you with less than fresh breath, so if you're a coffee lover, remember to brush your teeth properly. These small details make a big difference in how others perceive you. At the end of the day, remember, your body is your home. Taking care of it is not just a sign of respect for yourself, but also for those around you. And when you take care of yourself, you'll see how your relationships strengthen because people respond positively to what you project. It's a win-win. And there you have it, the reasons why people sometimes distance themselves from us, even if we don't always notice them right away. From a lack of empathy to neglecting personal hygiene, each of these points has a profound impact on our relationships, whether with friends, family, or partners. Remember, relationships are a reflection of how we treat ourselves and how we treat others. If you take care of yourself, if you're genuine, if you respect boundaries, and if you take the time to heal, you'll attract the energy and the people who truly matter. The journey isn't always easy, but the key is to keep moving forward with an open heart and a body in harmony. So, the next time you feel tempted to judge or shut doors, remember that what truly pushes people away isn't always what you see on the surface. It's what's inside, what we haven't worked on enough, or what we haven't yet learned to let go of. If you've made it this far, write self-love in the comments, so I know who the true victors are who reached the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content like this in the future. Share this video with anyone who might find it helpful, and consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. Link in the pinned comment. Now, I recommend watching one of these two videos to continue learning about Stoicism and human psychology. A big hug, and see you next time.